Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. Each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. Yesterday we spent some time talking about setting the agenda for life and marriage. Today, as you might imagine, we're going to, since we have Kelly Shackelford in studio, talking about setting the agenda for religious liberty. Certainly we'll have lots to talk about, and a little bit later this hour we're going to be talking with Gary Bauer, who will join us by phone. So I think you're really going to enjoy that as we are getting into this. So let me mention a few stories today that are certainly worthy of your attention. The first one is that Donald Trump has a much greater lead over Hillary Clinton, and this is from the USC LA Times poll. Now recognize this was taken before most people had seen the cell phone video of her collapsing, so we'll see if that makes even more difference or not. But it is interesting that you can occasionally find a poll where Hillary Clinton is ahead. Now you find a number where Donald Trump is ahead. But more to the point, as we've said, you are not elected by the popular vote, you're elected by the electoral vote. So what was happening in some of these so-called swing states is even more significant, and what you begin to see when you look at places like Ohio and Florida, Donald Trump has been doing quite well. And the two United States senators running in that race are doing quite well. And if you remember, a number of months ago, we had people saying, well, Rob Portman might not win in Ohio because, after all, he'll be drugged down by Donald Trump. Marco Rubio might be drugged down in Florida because of Donald Trump. Well, that hasn't quite panned out, which is a good reason to say don't always trust the pundits. They can be wrong, and this year they've been wrong more than many times before. So one of those issues that we may get back to a little bit later, especially as we talk with our good friend Gary Bauer. Also, public trust in the media hits an all-time historic low. Maybe that's why some people tune in to Point of View. Of course, Kelly Shackelford across the table from me, an individual that, of course, is the founder of First Liberty, and an individual that has traveled all over the country, literally all over the world, speaking on the issue of religious liberty. So it's always good to have you in studio with us.
Well, it's good to be here. You say over the country, and
you're everywhere.
I'm thinking, I'm in California tomorrow, then I'm in Oregon Monday, and then I'm in Florida on Wednesday. So I'm this week.
I know.
Definitely going to be doing that.
I follow you on Facebook, and I'm exhausted just reading about it. It just kills me.
Well, you travel a lot too and speak a lot, and unfortunately, there's a lot going on.
There is.
Especially for a guy who all we do is religious freedom. There's plenty going on with religious freedom. I mean, every day there's a new story that really Point of View listeners would go, that's not really true, is it?
Yeah.
I think of the United States Civil Rights Commission saying that religion is just a cover up, a code word for race, or for all these horrible terms. I mean, now I thought religious freedom was a civil right, and this is the United States Civil Rights Commission saying, we hate religious freedom. I mean, it's really, the stuff that's going on right now is just hard to believe. I mean, it's an all-out assault on, the whole concept of religious freedom. And people who question me on that, I say, okay, pick a state where you want to just offer a basic religious freedoms legislation and tell me there's not going to be, it won't be immediately highly charged and probably almost impossible to get through. Mississippi was the last state to pass one, and they barely got their religious freedoms, legislation through. And this is stuff that's been around for hundreds of years. I mean, it's just really basic stuff. So there's a real battle going on across the country for sure. And I'm sure, as you talked about the presidency, the next president will impact that in pretty dramatic ways. Supreme Court justices, policies, all kinds of issues that will affect religious freedom as a result of who gets that election.
Well, Kelly Shackelford is with me today before he heads out to the West Coast and all the other places he will be. And this is part of Truth Team 360. Each day we are setting the agenda. Yesterday we were setting the agenda for life and marriage. Kelly has already started to set the agenda for religious liberty and talk about those issues. And of course, as you know, he joins us virtually every Friday he's in town so that we can talk about those issues. And as he mentions in his speech at the Values Voters Summit, we talked about you last Friday because you were up there and Gary Bauer was up there, and we've made it possible for people to actually watch the speeches for you. So as you click on the See More button, you'll see Kelly talking about the fact that when he signed up for this, he didn't think he'd be addressing all these issues and trying to defend all these topics. So that's one of the other benefits that we provide to you. And this is why we're asking you to join with us in Truth Team 360. Again, it's called 360 because we recommend that if you could give just at least $1 a day, that's $30 a month, $360 a year. Now, I'd also want to challenge some of you to consider much more, and we'll talk about more of that in just a minute. But yesterday we had a challenge, a match that was put on the table, and by the end of the day, matter of fact, some of it didn't happen until about 10 o'clock at night, we met that challenge, and now we have another donor that has now put on a much more significant challenge of $10,000, which means, again, your gift of $100 becomes $200. Your gift of $30 a month becomes $60 a month. So please take the time to join with us. And let me, again, mention that number. It's 1-800-347-5151. If you're with us yesterday, you know the drill. We encourage you to give a call to all of the ladies that are, I'm looking at through the screen here, that are ready to answer some of those phones. So again, please take the time to join us, 1-800-347-5151. Or of course, you can also go online at pointofview.net, and we have an opportunity for you to join with us. And Kelly, you know, we don't really ask people to give to get, but they do get some very nice things. First of all, you can see there, we have right in front of you there the Bible stick, which we give to anybody that joins us as a Truth Team member, and it has the entire New Testament in audio. And then one of the other things we're making available for those that give at higher levels, and I'll hold this up for those of you online, it is not only a tumbler, but also a journal, which we are making available. This is something I found a lot of people really enjoy because you can drink your coffee or your tea and then join with us on the journal set. So you at the higher levels can join us. And we suggest a couple of ideas. One, if you wanted to sponsor a minute a month at $65 a month, or some of you might want to give at $100 a month. And I would certainly want to challenge some of you, if you have the capacity to give at those higher levels, we would greatly appreciate that. But we do need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Gary Bauer. And I'm going to let Gary Bauer and Kelly Shackelford, both who spoke at the Values Voters Summit, address this issue of what has come on the mindset of people in the UN Commission of Civil Rights. You would never have expected someone to say something like this, would you?
No. I mean, especially the chairman. You'd think, I thought this was the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, not the former Soviet Union Commission on Civil Rights. I mean, the statements were outrageous, and it wasn't like this was an off the cuff. This was in writing. This is what the chairman of the United States Commission on Civil Rights wanted really to get across, that religious freedom and religious liberty, those are, quote, code words for bigotry and discrimination.
So we're going to talk about that. And then also Gary Bauer gave his speech on the issue of this election being kind of what you might call a Flight 93 election. I'll let him explain that. So when you have two very talented people like Kelly Shackelford and Gary Bauer, I'm going to just step back and give you a chance to hear from them. But we need to hear from you right now as we go to our first break. Let me encourage you to call our pledge line. I'd like to see if we get 5 phone calls during this break, and we have 5 individuals ready to answer those phones. So let's see if we can hear from you. 1-800-347-5151. Or for those of you that are close to a computer, just simply go to pointofview.net. Make your pledge, and you'll help us meet that match of $10,000. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Although candidates have been talking about jobs and raising wages, they haven't done as well talking about how they will accomplish that. John Goodman and Lawrence Kotlikoff looked at the economic proposals put forth by the campaigns and found one policy change that would make a real difference. Donald Trump's campaign has a policy paper that has the potential of increasing the income of the average family by an estimated $4,000 within the next 4 years. Here's the surprise. The policy change has nothing to do with immigration or even foreign trade. The issue is corporate taxation. The United States has one of the highest corporate income tax rates in the world, but the tax rate doesn't actually raise that much money because of deductions and exemptions used by corporations. It has had the effect of driving jobs and capital overseas. The Trump proposal isn't something he talks about very much. In fact, you have to dig into the policy papers on the website to even see his proposal of replacing the current corporate income tax rate with a simple 15% flat tax on corporate profits. Boston University economist Lawrence Kotlikoff says this policy change will do three important things. First, it would lead to an enormous flow of capital back into the United States. Second, it won't cost anything in terms of lost government revenue because the loopholes will be gone and the tax base will be broadened. And third, the American people will be the beneficiaries of this policy change. You don't have to know much about economics or foreign trade to see the benefit of this policy. About $2 trillion of untaxed earnings are sitting offshore. Lowering the corporate income tax rate will result in a massive influx of money into the American economy. Not only will money flow into this country, but jobs and companies will flow back into this country as well. This is one policy change that will actually raise wages. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores. Point of View, Truth Team 360, Joseph Farah.
Well, I think Point of View is one of the first radio programs to really give us alternative news, if you will, to ferret out those stories that the so-called mainstream media would never bring to people. That is what has always made your program fascinating. It's what has always delivered the audience to you. For people who are really hungry for the real story, for real information, there is no parallel to Point of View.
Gary Bauer will be joining us in just a minute, but that was Joseph Farah, as you heard, and of course in studio with me, Kelly Shackelford, and it is in the middle of Truth Team 360. Yesterday we talked about setting the agenda for life and marriage. Today talking about setting the agenda for religious liberty. But let me just mention that again, we have on the table here a match of $10,000. That means your gift of $10 becomes $20, your gift of $100 becomes $200, and that expires tonight. As a matter of fact, this is one of the times where I sort of like have some fun, and I know that some of the broadcasts are aired in the evening, so I'm coming back in here and I'll be answering the phone. So if some of you call in the evening, you might get me. Some of you yesterday got my wife who came in, and of course a lot of other people here, staff members and a few volunteers. So Kelly, it's been a lot of fun there. So let me just mention that again, for your gift of $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, that is an opportunity for you to help us continue bringing these kinds of programs. And Kelly, I know that we've already posted some of the interviews from the Values Voters Summit, and so I want to talk in just a few minutes with Gary Bauer about one of the things that was in his speech, which he called the Flight of 93 election. But before we do, let's give him some indigestion. You and I already talked about the Commission on Civil Rights, Martin Castro. And who would have ever guessed that the chairman of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights would say such things as religious liberty and religious freedom are really just kind of code words for things like discrimination, intolerance, racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, Christian supremacy. Who would have ever guessed that?
I said I was interviewed by the media on this, and I said that no one should be allowed to serve on any civil rights commission, much less the chairman of the United States Civil Rights Commission, if they think religious freedom is a code word for racism and all these horrible things. I mean, religious freedom is our first civil right. It's the first freedom. You're disqualified now from serving on a civil rights commission because you're ignorant and you don't understand anything about the country, and you have a bigotry against religious freedom. It's appalling, and it shows you how backwards things have gotten. And we're starting to see a lot of articles now coming out on this because a lot of people are responding.
Right. But
this is really ridiculous.
Yeah, I was on a radio program this morning. I have a commentary coming out, but let's bring Gary Bauer in, president of American Values, an individual that served as the chief domestic policy advisor under Ronald Reagan. For a while was the president of Family Research Council, of course, with American Values. Gary, I know that many people first heard about Martin Castro because of your end-of-day report.
So I gave a whole bunch of other people an additional ulcer, in addition to the ones I've been giving out over the years. I mean, good grief! Kelly, you're absolutely right. I mean, how in the world did we get to this? I think it says something that Mr. Castro felt comfortable saying what he said. That in itself indicates how far we've gone down the drain here. If anybody ever was on that commission or any other and had this thought, they would have self-regulated themselves. They would have realized that the backlash among the general public and among elected officials in both parties would have been so overwhelmingly negative that this would just be something they would keep to themselves. But the fact that he said it, I think, indicates that he thinks, and he's probably right, that the country's changing. Fewer and fewer people understand that the right to freedom of religion is our first and arguably most important right, and it's just another marker for the drift of the country, I think, that's making so many Americans uncomfortable and worried about the future.
It's great to hear you, Gary. I'm slow on finding things out sometimes, and I just realized that Values Voter, I ran into Charmaine Yost, and I had no idea she was with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh! Now we not only have Gary Bauer, we got Charmaine Yost at the same place. So
yes.
Look out, country, because American Values is beefing up.
Well, thank you. I'm really blessed to get her on board, and although if you just keep it between us, I find as I get older, it takes more and more people to make me look good. So
let's go into this just a little bit more, because as I understand, one of the members of the commission who actually dissented from this, Peter Kirsanow, he really originally wanted to address this issue. And Kelly, it reminds me of the conversation we've had, because this report, again, it's called Peaceful Coexistence. But I think he was trying to see, is there a way that we can reconcile these? Because there have been people in the administration that have argued that if you have a tension between religious rights and gay rights wins. So I think he was originally saying, can we resolve that? But what you got from the chairman of the commission is, no, there's no issue. Though any of you that talk about religious liberty, you're just a bunch of despicable bigots.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And this is the danger here. This is the incredible. Some of these people, probably by secular standards have, high intellect, but it's really pretty foolish to decide you're going to give the power. I mean, you're going to give the government the power in this because you think this is an important issue to you, to trump religious freedom, and you think that means the government won't do that to you next. The whole idea of religious freedom is even when people who disagree with the popular opinion hold their own religious beliefs, we still believe in respecting that and allowing them, even though we think maybe their beliefs are wrong, maybe even that their beliefs are despicable. We still believe in freedom. If you ever decide, you know what, I've got the majority on this issue, and so I want to use the power of the government to crush everybody who disagrees, is very short-sighted because you've just now given the government to crush you next.
Yeah.
And that's the foolishness of this that's just incredible to me. They think, well, it's just this issue. Look, whenever religious freedom loses to whatever the popular issue is of the day, there'll be another popular issue, and it'll lose to that. What you're saying is religious freedom is now gone.
Well,
and that's the battle we're in.
Gary, I think you would certainly agree with that this is a bigger issue than just the rights of a few religious people, right?
Oh no, you're absolutely right. And look, the other thing that I've been thinking about a little bit recently is when I know the main issue here is religious liberty, but the battering ram that's being used is the demands of the gay rights movement.
Yes.
And when that movement started, when you go back and look at their arguments, etc., they were very smart to make essentially a libertarian argument. They said, look, you may not understand us, but we are who we are, and what we do in our own homes is our business. Who we love and who loves us is our business. And many Americans, including a lot of young Christians, said, well, that's right. I mean, if we are more open to those folks and their desires, it doesn't do anything to me as a Christian. Well, as they gained success in the popular culture and then in the law, etc., this movement that made a libertarian argument is now using the full weight and power of the federal government to demand acquiescence in their public policy agenda. No more live and let live. It's now you will do what we want or you will have to give up your religious liberty. So
Yes.
It's amazing how quickly it became it went from a libertarian movement to a quasi-fascist movement, and insisting that everything else bow down to its demands.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we will continue with Gary Bauer. Of course, Kelly Shackelford will be with us for 2 hours as we talk about some of these religious liberty issues. But as we go to a break, this is a great time for you to join with us. Again, the reason we're doing this is we're in the midst of Truth Team 360, and we're challenging you to consider what you might do to support this ministry. Now, I know some of you might just be able to give a one-time gift, but think about what you might be able to give and pledge. You might say, there is no way that I could give $1,200 to you. But, I might be able to give you $100 a month. There's no way that I could give you $360 and write a check for it right at the moment, but I could give you $1 a day, $30 a month. So consider what you might do. And as we go to a break, we have the lines open and an opportunity for you to join with us. That number is 1-800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. Noticed a number of you have joined with us that way. Either way, and we will take a break and come back with Gary Bauer and Kelly Shackelford right after this.
Does point of view make any difference? I think Dr. Eric Walsh would say it does. Dr. Walsh was fired from his job as district health director for the state of Georgia, not because of anything he did or failed to do on the job, but because of sermons he preached in his local church. What does that have to do with point of view? Jeremy Dice of First Liberty is representing Dr. Walsh in his effort to correct this apparent injustice. And Jeremy Dice became an attorney specializing in defending religious liberty greatly because of what he learned listening to Point of View Radio as a child. That is the kind of difference you make when you support the Truth Team, but we can't make that difference without your help. Become a partner today in this important mission of speaking the truth in love. Click on Join the Truth Team at pointofview.net. Choose your giving level, stretch a bit. Please do it today. Pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Truth Team 360, if you'd like to join with us, we certainly do encourage you to do so. That pledge line number, 1-800-347-5151. Got a few phone calls, and we'll give you some thank you notes out in just a minute. But let me just mention again that for your gift of $1 a day, $30 a month, we send you the Bible stick. And again, I know you don't give to get, but that's our way of giving you the entire New Testament, which is just a great resource produced by Faith Comes by Hearing. And we've over the years provided those Bible sticks to people in the military and all the rest. We wanted to give that to you. At the higher levels, if you wanted to sponsor, say, a minute a month, that turns out to be about $65 a month. And we would give you an option of either getting the Bible stick or our 16-ounce tumbler and journal set has our logo on it. Or, of course, at the $100 level, we'll give you all of that. And so please consider what you might do to join with us. And that number is 1-800-347-5151. We have people waiting to take your phone call. And let me just real quickly say thank you to Joe, who called in from Missouri and is going to be giving us $30 a month. Kathy, also a gift from, in this case, Ohio. Then we have a number of other gifts that were given online. Marjorie from Georgia, and Mary from South Carolina, George from Texas, Mary from Georgia. You can either give by certainly calling, or you can give online. And, Kelly, I noticed over the years when I've supported First Liberty, usually I get an appeal letter, so I write a check out. But whenever I give to Gary Bauer, and he's in the midst of raising money, and I'm going to give to him again, I do it online. So we've made it very easy. Simply go to the button that says Truth Team 360, and there you can put on your dollar amount that you wanted to give to us. We also have some of the welcome gifts there, and we've just made it very easy. And that's the kind of thing you can do while we're listening to the great conversation taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. I encourage Point of View listeners to do this, not just because I know you're listening and you value the content on Point of View, and you think, well, golly, I should pitch in something because I'm listening to this every day and it'll go off the air if I don't, do something. But I think even further than that, I think a lot of people don't realize that for every person who gives, that increases the number of people who get to hear by like 1,500. So if you become one of these True Team members or whatever, you're going to allow 1,500 more people, another radio station, another place. You're going to allow them to get the information, the truth. That really does help change the country when more and more people have the information and the truth to operate out of. So don't just think of, hey, I need to do my part for myself, which is true. But think about how you're spreading the word and more people can hear, people like Gary Bauer and the people you have on your program, which I think is invaluable.
You are supporting not only the radio program, but of course all the material that we make available to you. And today we have a link so that you can hear any of the speakers at Values Voters, and you can hear Kelly Shackelford talking about, I never thought I would be defending these kind of cases. You can hear Donald Trump, but you can also hear Gary Bauer, and we also have an article about this. Gary, you referred to this election as a Flight 93 election. Explain.
Well, Flight 93, as I think your listeners will remember, was the hijacked plane on 9/11 that ended up crashing in a field in Pennsylvania. And, of course, from the records of the cell phone calls that were made from that plane by the passengers, we know quite a bit of what happened on the plane. And the bottom line was that this was a plane full of normal Americans and just average folks, and they found themselves in the middle of a nightmare. Several flight attendants had been killed by the hijackers. The pilot and co-pilot had their throats cut, and the plane was now in control was being controlled by the Islamic supremacists. The passengers gathered in the back of the plane, and an argument broke out, a debate about what to do. Some passengers said, look, when your plane is hijacked, I've seen the movies, I've read the articles, you should stay in your seats, do what the hijackers tell you to do. The plane will eventually land, there'll be negotiations, that's our best way to get out alive. Other people on the plane said, no, this is not a typical case. I talked to my wife or my husband, the country's under attack. These planes are being used as weapons. We need to fight back, even though the odds are against us. We've got to get control of this plane and take a chance that we can land it, because otherwise we're definitely all going to die. Interestingly, there was still a disagreement after this debate, and somebody, we don't know who, said, let's vote. So imagine your fellow Americans on this plane voting on something as profound as that. The ones that wanted to fight back won. They did run down the aisle into the teeth of these men armed with box cutters, and they were able to get the plane out of their control, but unfortunately, as we know, the plane did crash. The point I was making, and the point that several other authors, one of them in the Claremont Review, made a few weeks ago in a long article about this, is that in some ways America is like that plane. We're careening out of control. We're on our way to crashing into something. We're abandoning Judeo-Christian values and traditions. Government is becoming more and more powerful. If we get another 4 or 8 years of left-wing judges on the courts, the First Amendment, religious liberty right, our Second Amendment rights, all these things will be up for grabs. And so I urge the audience to think of this election as if it was the election that was held in the back of that plane. And the decision we have to make is whether we're going to just be as we usually do, kind of low-key, well, yeah, maybe I'll vote, maybe I won't, or will we make that extra effort to talk to our own kids and grandkids, volunteer, donate money, show up on election day, whether there's a blizzard or a hurricane or whatever's going on. Do everything we can, because I can make a case. I don't want to sound like Chicken Little, but I can make a case that this may be the last election chance we have to actually win with somebody that is relatively close to our views on a variety of issues. That the country could change so much, in another 4 to 8 years of these policies, that we may not be able to elect another person on our side again to the presidency. So a lot of people like the speech, but a lot of people on the left are saying that I was comparing the left to hijackers and I want to kill them. No, I just want to defeat him at the ballot box.
And again, the article is there, which gives you some of the quotes, and of course then also a link so that people can watch that as well. So it's on our website. But Gary, just before we let you go, talk about why people need to support Point of View, because you've said this is the most consequential election in our lifetime. Everybody would agree with that, I would think. But why bother to support a radio program like this?
Kerby, the problem people have today in modern America is we have so much information, we don't know how to get through it all, and we don't know who we can trust. So, I run into people, they'll say something, and I go, well, that's ridiculous. Where'd you hear that? Well, it was on the Internet. It's got to be true. Well, no, it doesn't. It depends on who put it on the Internet. And same thing with the radio shows you listen to, or the TV shows, or the political figures that you follow. And Point of View has just always been a source of accurate information, of the kind of information that men and women who take faith seriously need to have if they're going to be effective citizens in a more and more complicated world. I'm so convinced about Point of View's importance and your work on it, Kerby, that you mentioned a little earlier that I was doing some fundraising. I would have suspected a number of your listeners got my email about my fundraising, and I'm respectfully asking those folks that fit into that category to tear up my email and make any donation they were planning on making to me in Washington instead to Point of View. Because without outlets like Point of View, I'm sort of spitting into a hurricane. What I think, the views that I have, the ideas I have, can't get out of this city unless there are dependable places like Point of View and men like you too to get that word out. So I'm proud to be on the same team with you.
Well, we certainly appreciate your willingness to join with us. I know this has been a busy day, and I appreciate you letting me interrupt you for a few minutes. And it's just great to always watch you and Kelly and all the others at the Value. Just before we go to a break, though, let me just mention Team 360. Gary Bauer has issued a challenge to you. So we'd like to know what you can do to join with us. certainly join with us. Perhaps you would want to give more at maybe $65 a month or $100 a month. That will leave up to you. There are a number of welcome gifts I've talked about that are available to you. And certainly as we go to a break, this is a great time for us now to encourage you to go to the phones so that those individuals waiting by the phones can begin to chat with you. It will only take a few minutes. The pledge line number, 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. The website, pointofview.net. We'll come back with Kelly Shackelford right after this.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
I always wanted to give because I thought that Point of View really brings a lot of things out here in the open that you don't hear anywhere else. But what I like, when I was hearing on there, well, I could count on it being something that you could about check into it and the proof would be there. I didn't have to wonder, well, where did they make that stuff up from? I really think that's great.
I've been listening to you right around 30 years now, before I got married, and now we had kids going to college. And we used to donate regularly. We're going to start doing it again. It's a worthwhile cause. I mean, sometimes you get fed here much more than you will in your churches, and look at how much we give to the churches. We should be supporting it.
But I feel it's so important that we know what's going on, and you folks do a great job of it. And I also had joined, it's the best thing to do. Like somebody said, they do $1 a day, and they don't feel that so much. At the end of the month, they've got $30 to send right off.
Yes, thank you for, first of all, what you do. And I just wanted to say that your program is giving us a voice, and I want to thank you for that.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
In the middle of Truth Team 360, and we certainly did get a number of phone calls when we went to the break there. Gary Bauer, so gracious to give us a challenge, and so even though we have a few on the phone, we do have an opportunity for you to join with us. That's 1-800-347-5151. And we have in studio with us today Kelly Shackelford. Let me just mention that you can also give online, and most of these I'm reading right now are those who gave online. So that way you can be listening to the program and give to us while you hear all the great content that we're getting from so many of our guests. And we want to certainly thank today Kay in Florida, becoming $1 a day, $30 a month. Charlene also in that category. One-time gift from Marilyn in New Mexico. I might just mention that Charlene is from Alabama. So we're certainly seeing representatives from all sorts of different states around the country. And so please take the time to join with us. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. We do have a $10,000 match on the table, which exists only today. And so recognize that we really do need to meet that match by the end of this broadcast. And again, I'll get the calls later. We will certainly take some phone calls after the program is ended, and a few radio stations carry it later. So I'll even be in here tonight taking some of those phone calls, chatting with you. But again, we don't want to leave any dollars on the table, so please join with us. Kelly Shackelford with us, and we've been talking about this issue of religious liberty, but I remember back when you first started hearing Point of View. You want to share that story with us?
Yeah, obviously back with Marlon Maddox, who many people remember. I was in law school, and I heard this thing on the radio, and I thought, oh, wow, it's mixing sort of law and public policy and all that, but from a Christian point of view, and just loved it, and I'd never heard anything like it, and never would have thought that that's where God was, going to be taking me, and then, eventually showing up with Marlon on Point of View. I mean, so it was really the circle, but I mean, it was one of those things that as a young college student, as a young law student, I would have never even known about this type of a connection. And so I'm sure there are a lot of younger people that have the same story, that are involved in their communities, in their neighborhood. Maybe they're the point person at their church, on the Salt and Light Committee or whatever you call them these days. Mm-hmm. And it's because Point of View actually, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest problems in churches is, and I had this conversation at a past church where I was a member with the pastor and the associate pastor. I said, look, I don't want you to be political. I just want you to address every issue from a biblical standpoint. Mm-hmm. And that includes, how you're to be at work, how you're to be at family, how are you to relate to your government, what are our, stewardship responsibilities as citizens and all that. And as I went through all these things, they went, I've never thought of it that way. And I think Point of View helps people realize the Bible applies to every area of life. Even the stuff you're seeing, on TV or in the news, and it's a help for people to have somebody who's analyzing this through Scripture and is saying, well, let's talk about what the Scripture says about this or how Christians should think about this. I think that's something that the reason Point of View is so popular and on so many stations all over the nation is because Christians want that. And the thing I think of is, if you don't hear it here, you won't hear it. Mm-hmm. I challenge people to think about the things they hear here. Do they hear it anywhere else? I bet if you went to firstliberty.org and looked at our cases, and then ask yourself, if you're at a computer, go look at firstliberty.org, look at some of the cases and think, where did I hear about this case? Did I hear about it on, Point of View, or did I hear about it on ABC News? Mm-hmm. Or what?
We know the answer to that one.
Yeah,
don't we?
And so a lot of the information you're getting, which is crucial information for Christians, you wouldn't hear if Point of View disappeared. So I just encourage people. I think that's one of the huge advantages to Point of View is it's going to provide something you're not going to find anywhere else. And then the other thing is that the information is accurate. In a lot of these other, especially like talk shows, there's a lot of people who say things off the cuff. They make things up. It's slide and move. anybody who knows you, Kerby, knows you have a book on every one of these things, and there's all these scriptures, and there's all this. Some people call you the biblical computer, and they know that Kerby is never one to like fudge or push the envelope on an issue or whatever. It's going to be accurate. You're going to have the information, the facts, so they know that when they listen to Point of View, it's not just something that they're not going to hear somewhere else, but it's something that's going to be thoroughly backed by accurate information and not something that's just floating around.
So again, you talked about this idea of a Christian worldview and how that is so different than a lot of even conservative talk shows and others. But also, even today, the Gallup polls show that public trust in the media falls to historic low. It has never been that low since 1972, which is before a lot of individuals that are listening to this program were born, and when some of us were back in college or going to college. So that's shows you that people are saying, as Gary mentioned a minute ago, we're awash of information, but what do I believe? And that's another thing I appreciate about you, Kelly. I know even off air here, you were trying to communicate to somebody that one of the stories being circulated right now is not true. And we try to clear up some of that miscommunication and misinformation, which in this case had to do with Donald Trump. And if it's not true, it could hurt somebody in a campaign. And it's, again, why we do the best job we can of giving you the best information. But then we post all these articles, oftentimes to First Liberty or to American Values or whoever it might be. So if people, as one of the caller montage said just a minute ago, somebody says, where do you get that? Well, I found it on Point of View. I heard him say it, and then he's got an article to back it up. And that's really important for people in this day and age.
It is. That kind of accurate information is important. Like the ones you mentioned, we don't have a lot of time before the break, but there was a rumor going around that Donald Trump had promised Peter Thiel that he was going to appoint him to Scalia's spot. And Peter Thiel is a well-known, very wealthy, libertarian homosexual. And of course,
it's not true. Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
And the reality is, George Barna put out a deal here just recently that's saying the number one reason why so many evangelicals, conservatives are, even if they're reluctant, but why they're going to Trump is the Supreme Court and their knowledge that he is going to appoint conservative Supreme Court justices. So it's not surprising that a false rumor this would go out to try to discourage people on the number one issue that's important to them.
Well, if you trust Point of View and appreciate what we do, then let's take a break, and we're going to come back. We'll still have Kelly Shackelford with us a little bit later. Jeremy Dice will be with us. We'll be talking about some very important religious liberty cases that you have probably not heard about, others giving you an update on ones you have heard about. But again, Truth Team 360, we have a $10,000 match on the table. For every gift that you give, it is doubled. So we need to hear from you. And this is a very good time to call, since you won't miss any of the content, which is going to unfold again in about 8 or 10 minutes. 1-800-347-5151. Let's get all the phones ringing. 1-800-347-5151. Or visit the website, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
This is an incredibly important week for Point of View. We need to build our war chest to get us through the election season. This week, we need you to step up and join the team. Just as a political campaign cannot get its message out without donor support, Point of View must have friends like you as we head into the final leg of this presidential race. Imagine Hillary Clinton in the White House. Think of what justices she would nominate to the Supreme Court. The next president is likely going to shape our highest court for several decades, and Point of View wants to provide a biblical perspective of all of the issues in this year's campaign. But we cannot do it, we simply can't, without you. Please step up now as a monthly partner. Click the Join the Truth Team button at pointofview.net and choose your level. Stretch a bit or call 1-800-347-5151. Pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, friends and society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Halfway through our Truth Team 360, and again, we do this Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is just an opportunity for us to come to you and talk about our financial needs and for you to join with us. And so we're about halfway through this. Kelly Shackelford in studio with us, and let me just mention that we are looking for those of you that will join with us, partner with us, 1-800-347-5151, and it can be as little as $1 a day, $30 a month. It could be a one-time gift. I really want to challenge some of you that you might say, you know, I really could give a lot more, because I've noticed that a lot of people have said, well, I can give $1 a day. But if we came back and said, you know, but could you give a little bit more? $100 a month, $65 a month. We've talked about some of those giving levels. That is certainly something that we want to encourage you to consider as well. Maybe some of you would just say, well, I'd like to give you a one-time gift and I'll put it on my credit card and pay it off. We certainly will value and appreciate any gift of any size. So please, what we are looking for is participation, and the amounts will take care of themselves. So again, visit our website, pointofview.net, or the pledge line, 1-800-347-5151. This hour, we're going to have Jeremy Dice joining us in studio. We had Gary Bauer with us the last hour, and this has been kind of a theme week. We've talked about setting the agenda. Yesterday was setting the agenda of life and marriage. The life issue, of course, was addressed by Marjorie Dannenfelser, who actually talked a great deal about some of the life issues. The marriage issue, talking about that with John Stonestreet. We just had Gary Bauer with us, and we'll be continuing our conversation with Kelly Shackelford. And I want to get into maybe a little of some of the updates, but let me thank at least a few of you here for your gift. And here is Martha from Texas, joined with us. We also have a number that we're able to give online. Mike and Karen from Florida, thank you for your gift and becoming a Truth Team member. We also have Jenny from Mississippi, John from North Carolina, and also we have Rindle from Texas. So those are just a few individuals either that called in or joined us through the website. And let me just mention, if you're just joining the program, that we have a $10,000 match that's on the table, which means your gift of $100 becomes what? $200. Some of you might say, well, I'd like to give a one-time gift, and maybe I could give you $500. That becomes $1,000. So we are about a third of the way to the fulfillment of that match. We're about halfway through the program. And so, Kelly, we got a lot more to do, but we're going to spend some time talking about religious liberty today.
Absolutely. I challenge somebody out there. There's somebody out there who could do like 5,000 of the 7,000. And could call in right now and basically almost be done with this and meet the match. I mean, you don't want to allow $10,000 to like go away. In this case, it'd be $7,000, and that match is only for today. So I would encourage people to call in while they're thinking of it. You know, I know they'll get busy if they go home or they're in the car and they think, well, I'll do this later. I encourage them to do it now. To call the 800-347-5151. And go ahead and get that done, because we not only want Point of View to continue on wherever you're listening to this, but we'd like it to be on other stations so whole other groups and communities of people can hear and know about these things that we're talking about, because I think everybody really should know. And you're probably a great, if you're listening to this, you're probably, the Paul Revere of your community because you get this information. It's your little secret in some ways. It's like they think how does he know all this stuff? Or how does she know all this in my Sunday school class or my whatever?
Or usually it's, are you sure of that? I haven't heard that anywhere else. Well, if you listen to Point of View, you hear it.
Yeah, and then you can go to pointofview.net, and there's the information backing it up. So I'd encourage people to do that, to call in and try to be a Truth Team member, be a supporter. But there's somebody out there, there's a number of people out there who could just write a check and really help meet the matching grant almost immediately.
We're going to have Jeremy Dyson here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about the First Liberty briefing, so understand the value of radio. You even talked about how radio was one of the things that got you thinking about, well, maybe I could be doing this instead of just working in a corporate law firm. But before we get into some other aspects of what's happened in the Truth Team, last week on Friday, we talked about you being out in San Diego, seeing the retirement of Chaplain Motter. And I thought for just a minute, share what happened there.
It was incredible. I'm trying to think I know we at least had one picture online. If they go to firstliberty.org, they can probably see that. But Cassie had taken a number of pictures, and I saw a number of pictures, and I just don't know which ones they posted.
I've seen some on Facebook, so I know they're
Facebook.
there.
Maybe that's where they are. Maybe that's where they're on Facebook.
I saw quite a number of you out there on the ship and everything. It's amazing.
It was on the USS Midway. How cool.
Yes.
And, I've been to a lot of the different military retirement ceremonies, but the Navy is a little more pomp and circumstance, which is kind of fun. There's a little red carpet. There are people lined up on the sides of the carpet. There's whistles blown for certain levels of people who are speaking, and there's all kinds of saluting and whistles and great, uniforms and things. It was really formally done and well done. But what's great is, Point of View listeners know this, is the background. Here is Motter, a Marine, a guy who is not just a chaplain, but a chaplain to like the special forces, like SEAL Team 6. This is a real guy, deployed 14 times. They tried to throw him out of the Navy because as a chaplain, he answered biblical questions with biblical answers when somebody tried to get him for holding to the Bible. And he was detached for cause. He was essentially fired. He was going before the review committee to be thrown out of the Navy. His career was over. His pension was gone. It wasn't 20 years. It was 19 and a half years. Your pension doesn't vest until 20. It was all over. And he was so stunned he couldn't even talk when our attorneys arrived. And here's this chaplain, and they said, "Would you like to pray?" He said no. That's how impacted he was. He was totally stunned. Here we are, a little over a year later. Not only was everything reversed, but here we were on the USS Midway with Chaplain Motter not only retiring with commendations, with medals, and about to start his brand new pastorate at a church outside of Chicago. So he was being lifted up by the Navy, and God was lifting him up in what he was going to do next. It was just great to see the contrast with, where he was headed and where he ended up. And that was because of people like Point of View listeners who were praying for him, First Liberty supporters who were sending in money so we but the what God had done in a little over a year.
Pictures from your Facebook pages that I found and put them on ours. Kelly said just a minute ago, just think of all the stories and all the cases about some of those on Point of View, unless, of course, Jeremy dies or Michael or Gary or somebody or anybody that might have been involved, of course, Kelly, that might have done it on another talk show. But we cover all of those, and we have been doing this for some time at pointofview.net. So that's one of the reasons why we challenge you right now to join with us. 800-347-5151. We've got some open lines. We'd love to hear from you. And again, when we come back, Jeremy Dice will be with us, and we'll be talking about this First Liberty briefing and some of these very important First Liberty cases. Please give us a call, 1-800-347-5151.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Although candidates have been talking about jobs and raising wages, they haven't done as well talking about how they will accomplish that. John Goodman and Lawrence Kotlikoff looked at the economic proposals put forth by the campaigns and found one policy change that would make a real difference. Donald Trump's campaign has a policy paper that has the potential of increasing the income of the average family by an estimated $4,000 within the next 4 years. Here's the surprise. The policy change has nothing to do with immigration or even foreign trade. The issue is corporate taxation. The United States has one of the highest corporate income tax rates in the world, but the tax rate doesn't actually raise that much money because of deductions and exemptions used by corporations. It has had the effect of driving jobs and capital overseas. The Trump proposal isn't something he talks about very much. In fact, you have to dig into the policy papers on the website to even see his proposal of replacing the current corporate income tax rate with a simple 15% flat tax on corporate profits. Boston University economist Lawrence Kotlikoff says this policy change will do three important things. First, it would lead to an enormous flow of capital back into the United States. Second, it won't cost anything in terms of lost government revenue because the loopholes will be gone and the tax base will be broadened. And third, the American people will be the beneficiaries of this policy change. You don't have to know much about economics or foreign trade to see the benefit of this policy. About $2 trillion of untaxed earnings are sitting offshore. Lowering the corporate income tax rate will result in a massive influx of money into the American economy. Not only will money flow into this country, but jobs and companies will flow back into this country as well. This is one policy change that will actually raise wages. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores. Point of View. Truth Team 360. Bruce Pepin.
What was most significant for me was being able to be interviewed by Kerby on Point of View. And what struck me about this is I work for a very large Christian organization. And while I have had my whole career in Christian ministry, my family has largely been outside the faith, and although I have tried many times to appropriately share about Jesus with them, it wasn't until I was on the air with Kerby and they were aware that I was being interviewed that they tuned into this program. I don't think they had ever listened to Christian radio in the past. So much so that my sister, who was living in New Zealand, was able to pick up the program. And as soon as I was finished, even with the time zone differences, she emailed me right away saying how significant she thought the program was. She felt that the program was so well organized, that the questions that were asked, that Kerby, how he led the whole program, it really connected to her heart. So I just wanted to express how blessed I was to be on the program, but also personally experience the impact and the reach of the message that Point of View has all around the world. And I would encourage you to support it and have the vision for what Point of View can accomplish for God's kingdom today.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
Testimony from Bruce Pepin, who is with Focus on the Family. Kelly's got his Focus on the Family golf shirt on today, as a matter of fact. Again, that's high praise from an individual that maybe you don't know. You don't sometimes know the people that are behind the scenes, but when somebody tells you that the radio program is of high quality, then talks about his unsaved sister in New Zealand here in the program. And I look over the number of individuals that listen to this program, because we get a printout that shows how many go to the YouTube channel, how many download the various podcasts and things of that nature. And I'm thinking, who in Dubai is listening to this? Who in Indonesia was listening to this particular program? But again, just an incredible reach. And we're talking today, of course, Truth Team 360, about setting the agenda. And today the topic is religious liberty. And we have in studio with us, of course, Kelly Shackelford, and also Senior. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, always good to be back. Thanks for having me, Kirby.
Let me, just before we get into some more religious liberty issues, also encourage you to give us a call. We, I think, have some of the calls ending, and so this is a great time for some of you to join with us. First of all, I want to thank Kay for giving us a gift on... she's from Texas, and then we have some that went online. Marcy from Nacogdoches in Texas, also one of those $30 a month, $360 a year. Carmel, I think it is, in Texas. Then we have some others that called in from Florida. Charles called in from Florida. Phil called in from Florida. And then we have Ricky calling in from Georgia, just to mention a few of you that have already given to this ministry, and there is a place for some of you to join us as well. We have a $10,000 match on the table. We really were able to go through about a third of it. Kelly was challenging some of you to give her $5,000 and see if we can end it real quickly, but we'll see how that goes. But we do encourage you to give. That match lasts till midnight tonight. For some of you that are listening to this later in the evening, I'm actually going to come back and answer some phones. So my daughter is, and a few other people. Yesterday, my wife answered it, and people
said,
"Are
they going to buy you pizza at least?" Or if
I'm
you're going to come back
I get
tonight?
something because it's late, but it's just a fun chance to chat with some of the listeners. And if you want to not only just be a listener but a donor, again, there's a place for you. 1-800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. One of First Liberty Briefing. Jeremy, I'd love to have you talk about that, because you've been in front of a microphone today doing some of those briefings. What's going on?
Well, look, the First Liberty Briefing is just an opportunity to tell the story of religious liberty. The dentist tells you you're supposed to brush your teeth for 90 seconds, and it's just coincidental that the First Liberty Briefing is 90 seconds long. So when I start talking, you press play and start brushing your teeth, and then when I say go to firstliberty.org, you should stop brushing your teeth and be well informed about religious liberty. So it's just a quick way, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for people to get a good insight into what's going on with religious liberty. Here's some of the stories that have made religious liberty law in this country. Hear a lot of the hope that is out there, because there's a lot of really good stories and cases involving religious liberty. And be prepared so that you know what your job is to steward this religious liberty that's been given to you, as our Declaration of Independence so well reminds us, by our Creator, so that we're able to employ that wherever we go.
Well, again, we want to make sure that people understand that religious liberty is not a code word for discrimination, Islamophobia, homophobia, or anything like that, right?
It's in a different basket entirely. But
that might be a new subject for First Liberty.
That's
topic.
A basket of deplorables.
You just never know what'll turn up on the First Liberty Briefing. I've done everything from vacations to things I've just read about as I'm preparing for something else. So you want to download that at iTunes or at firstliberty.org/briefing. And I'm sure you can go to pointofview.net and find a link to it off of there as well.
We do have that link there, and if you just click on the picture there, then it says arming you with knowledge in less than, I guess that's 90 seconds. Mine didn't, screen went off there, but again, First Liberty Briefing, and so you have all sorts of opportunities to listen to that. You see the value of radio, don't you? I think you first listened to Point of View when you were just a youngster, weren't you?
That's exactly right. And, I was just thinking, as I was doing my kind of time zone calculation, it's about 3:25 on the East Coast, which means there's some kid like me somewhere sitting in his mom's minivan waiting for his sister to get out of school, or whatever choir rehearsal she's in, so that they can go home and he can go back and play basketball or whatever it was that they want to do after school these days. That was me as a kid, years and years ago, sitting in the van with mom in the school parking lot, waiting for my sister to get out of that interminably long choir practice after school, because I just wanted to go home and play basketball and soccer and anything else I could do outdoors with my friends as often as possible. But Mom and I sat there and we would have a little snack after school, and she'd leave the van on and we'd be listening to Point of View. And it was in those long rehearsals and those long times spent in that half-ton Chevy van that we had, the conversion van. I just remember it so well, eating the Andy Strauss pretzel or potato chip things that we used to have over there. That we would learn a lot about what's going on in the world today. I mean, I was a kid. I was in 4th grade when this is going on.
Fourth grade.
You
make me feel really old.
So it's imagine my excitement when I got down here to Texas and I got to meet Kerby Anderson and Penna Dexter and all these people who I'd literally almost cut my teeth on years ago with Marlon Maddox and the rest. That challenged me in my thinking, along with my mother who would interpret some of the things I didn't understand. And then over the dinner table that night, we would get together and talk about what we just heard on Point of View. So I'm certain that there is some Jeremy Dice sitting somewhere in a school parking lot. Hopefully mom is having that on and they're not distracting their kids with some other silly thing on a tablet or something else, but instead they're focusing their minds on what's going on the radio. You don't know, Mom, how your impact is what kind of an impact you're making on your kid just by having the radio turned on to Point of View as you're driving to and from school and waiting for soccer practice, choir practice, or whatever other practice might be having to take place to get done.
Well, Kelly, you did a good job picking a guy that is such articulate, not only on radio but in television. So it's just great to have him doing the briefing for you at First Liberty.
Kind of chilling as I listen to this is thinking of all the Jeremy Dices out there who don't listen to Point of View and I don't know, they might be the next serial killers or something. So I mean, they need Point of View. I mean, guys that are ferocious and determined and as committed as Jeremy. I mean. Boy, we need Point of View everywhere. We start pointing all those guys in the right direction. Look out, and I do encourage people to listen to this. The podcasts are so easy to grab, and I think everybody knows how to do that now.
That's why we have the link.
And these are really unique. Some of them are stories, about famous maybe situations that you're not as aware of, and some of them are cases, obviously. But there's a lot of learning about religious freedom, but. Just it's a great way, and it's real quick. I mean, people are looking for things real quick these days, and this is a real simple way to kind of keep connected to what's going on.
Look, everybody's got to brush their teeth. So, I mean, 90 seconds, and you can listen to the entire thing, get your teeth brushed, and also have a good lesson on religious liberty.
Well, again, we have the link on the website, pointofview.net. But let's, as we're coming to a break, challenge you to join with us. That pledge line number, 1-800-347-5151. Yesterday, we got talking a little bit about homeschooling because we were talking with Penna Dexter and some others. And today, maybe we can challenge some of you that are in the military, because we talked about chaplain modern. Maybe even challenge some of you that are raising kids and recognize how important it is to maybe pass this on to your children. And what a great testimony, sitting across from two individuals that heard about Point of View before I even had a chance to meet them. Marlon Maddox, of course, was influential in both of your lives, but here Kelly at Baylor Law School and Jeremy in the van.
Fort Myers Christian School parking lot. That's where I was.
Just amazing. So again, if you want to support the future and what is going to happen in this country, we certainly, without hesitation, challenge you right now to go to the website, pointofview.net. Of course, we have a number of people. Many of the people are online, so 3 of the lines are already full, but I think we got another line or 2 left for you. So give us a call, 1-800-347-5151. A $10,000 match on the table. When we come back, we're going to talk about the NCAA, North Carolina. What's going on there? We have a lot more to talk about. We'll do that right after this.
Former White House policy advisor Gary Bauer.
It's only by listening to things like Point of View that Americans find out what the ultimate agenda is. What we've all got to do is make sure programs like yours and this network continue to thrive, because that's the only way millions of Americans are going to find out the information that they need.
And the way to ensure Point of View Radio thrives is by going online right now or picking up the phone to join Truth Team 360. We bring information, wisdom, and encouragement to help you take action for the good of this community and the nation. Go online now to pointofview.net/team. Pointofview.net/team. Select your giving amount, choose your gift, stand together with people all across the land on Truth Team 360. Pointofview.net/team. Join Truth Team 360 by phone, 1-800-347-5151. 5151, or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour, and we certainly do encourage your support. And if you can help us out, please take the time to visit our website, pointofview.net. Of course, the pledge line number 800-347-5151. Truth Team 360, setting the agenda and spending a little more time on religious liberty. In studio with me, of course, Kelly Shackelford and Jeremy Dice, and we'll get to the next issue in just a minute. But a few more thank yous. One-time gift from Kevin in Ohio. Julia in Alabama, again, a special gift to the ministry. Also, I'm looking for that big gift that Kelly was talking about. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, that would knock it out.
A number of people here that are giving on a monthly basis. Gloria from Texas. A number of people from Corpus Christi, which would include Angela as well as Pastor Darnell, I think is how it is. And so, again, just want to thank many of you that have already given, and we are excited about that. You can join with them and help us finish off our match of $10,000. I think we just heard that already more than half of it's taken care of, so we'll see. But we don't want to leave any money on the table. Imagine somebody put $10,000 on the table and half of it is taken care of and the other half is just sitting there. You wouldn't leave it there. You know, you'd take it and deal with it. So that is one of those topics that
I'm still going with my one-person theory. Somebody's going to call in now and say, I'm going to do $400 a month, and that'll knock out the rest of it. So
that is good.
Somebody listening, God just gave you something, and you were going to tithe it somewhere, and now you know where.
So I want the mom who drives the carpool to make the call in right now.
Donate the van.
That's right. Donate the van to look, there is some mom sitting somewhere driving to pick up her kids from school right now. And they've got another Jeremy Dice in their back seat who is going to sit there and wait for her sister to get out of whatever rehearsal is going on that day. You've got to have made it so easy that you can go to pointofview.net on your iPhone today, right now, as you're sitting in that parking lot or in the carpool lane. Don't do it while you're driving; it's bad form. But when you get parked somewhere, give that donation here and just give that $400 a month so we can finish up this matching gift.
You know, I was just thinking about all the individuals that we've had a chance to hear from just at First Liberty. You know, of course, Jeremy Dice and Kelly Shackelford, but we have Cassie and we have Chelsea and we have Michael, and just a great resource. And Kelly, you know, when we first started talking about this, we thought, well, yeah, every Friday we ought to focus, if we can, on religious liberty. And I remember when we first talked about that, we're saying, well, we have enough to cover that. Oh, well, you know, we don't have to do it every week. We now have enough every day. We have a briefing that every day you're doing, right?
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but you can listen to it every day.
Yeah, so there you go. So, I mean, you just, and even for those that were not with us in the first hour, we talked about when you spoke at the Values Voter Summit, and you can actually listen to and watch Kelly speak. One of the powerful statements you made is, I had no idea I would be making and having to defend these kind of issues when I got into this.
Yeah, 27 years ago, I don't think anybody could have, when I was starting to do this kind of work. I mean, we knew there was religious freedom needed, but not like this. It was only, I guess, about 4 or 5 years ago, that we had to open a division for the military.
I remember that.
I mean, It wasn't even a concept to most people that you would need to do that. Much less a division where we're protecting churches and synagogues from being shut down. I mean, they're like, and people right now are listening to Point of View and going, oh, come on. I mean, they have no idea. I mean, we just won a case last year on behalf of 2 black churches that they literally were going to come. Jeremy was out there at those churches.
Yeah, I remember
They were going to take the property. The government was going to say, this is now valuable. Now that you've redeemed your community, we're going to take your property and turn it into tax-paying property. We're defending a synagogue right now where they want to push those Jewish people out of the neighborhood. That's the whole goal. I mean, the idea that we would have to represent and defend churches from being bulldozed, or a synagogue from being pushed out of the community. I mean, I think most people, would have never guessed that, and some people still have a hard time believing it, although I'd say we average about 2 new churches a week we have to help. So that just shows how much it's changed in the last 27 years since I've been doing this.
I don't think anybody would have predicted that when a legislature says that boys should use boys' bathrooms and girls should use girls' bathrooms, that you would have, for example, the NBA taking the All-Star game out of Charlotte, the NFL saying we're going to continue to fight this, and then the NCAA taking 7 different championships out of North Carolina over what? Over actually requiring that children go to the bathroom of their biological sex. That would be controversial enough that we would see the kind of punishment that the Tar Heel state is getting right now.
Well, and let's look at what this law is that's so controversial in North Carolina. The law is that we're not going to tell you as a private business how to deal with this bathroom situation. That's what the law says. The law gives private businesses the right to have a boys' room and a girls' room. That is the controversy. And the NCAA is saying we're pulling out all of our championships. This is, on so many levels, this is infuriating to me. Number one, it's incredibly hypocritical. I mean, this is about not just bathrooms. It's about, locker rooms, showers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What does the NCAA think about, males walking into female showers?
And do they allow that in the NBA or the NFL or the NCAA? No,
I
don't
think there's
so.
huge controversy right now about those types of things. Like, ask Baylor or ask some of these places that have gone through some of these places where people have been raped, where sexual assaults have occurred, where schools have to go way beyond the pale in trying to make sure that they stop anything. I mean, look, criminal activity is criminal activity. And they're putting all this responsibility on the colleges and universities to do extra to make sure that that can't happen. Well, there's no way to stop criminal activity really at some basis, but they're going all these extra steps. In the midst of that, the NCAA is saying you can't have a girls. You've got to allow the. Excuse me, but I think there's a girls and a boys team. How can you do this boys and girls team thing? That you can't allow that. So it's just silly on so many levels. But the thing that irritates me the most is, why is the NCAA getting involved in politics and in public policy?
That's a good point too. Yeah.
I mean, I think most people are really annoyed by this. I mean, they put on the TV to watch a football game on the weekend to enjoy and watch a football game. I think the NFL is going to pay for this too. I mean, this idea of not standing up for the national anthem and all this. I mean, people aren't watching the show because they think Colin Kaepernick is a brilliant political figure who has wonderful things to say. They're watching the game to watch the game. That they want to watch these people that have athletic skill. They haven't proven themselves with great intellect. So why they think that they're going to take over a sport, I think they're going to push people away from these places. Mm-hmm. I think the NCAA is now starting down a road that they're going to really regret if they continue to go down that road. I hope they have enough sense, somebody does, on the board of the NCAA, whatever, to say we don't need to be starting, because this can never stop. Once we start stepping into these issues, we've got to step into all the issues, and we're just going to make everybody angry with us, and which is the reason why they really shouldn't be involved in this type of thing at all, period.
Jeremy?
Yeah, well, look, in some ways, in kind of an irony, you want to almost appreciate them for having some convictions here. I just wish that they wouldn't be hypocritical with it, right? Because my guess is the same people that are begging them to pull out or forcing them or cajoling them into pulling out of North Carolina are the same ones that are opposed to Aaron and Melissa Klein, our clients in Oregon, who wanted to simply bake a cake. Didn't want to bake a cake that would disagree with their religious beliefs. And they're saying, you got to bake the cake. But the NCAA, they can exercise their liberty to pull out of North Carolina. The consistency, the lack of consistency on the part of the progressive left right now is staggering. In some ways, I respect and appreciate Bruce Springsteen for his ability to pull out of North Carolina and to exercise his convictions to come out of North Carolina. But he's not being consistent if he doesn't support Aaron and Melissa Klein and their right to refuse to decline to bake a cake that would compromise me. And I would rather just have the fact that we could just sit down and watch a good old political statement here or there.
David French talked about it being the weaponizing of sports. And, again, there are very few things that draw us together, but everybody sits down and watches the Super Bowl, and doesn't matter whether you're homosexual, heterosexual, rich or poor, black or white, whatever, all those differences that sometimes divide us. But now even sports has become contentious. And I just have said before, can we just ask major businesses to stay out of the culture war? And can we ask the sports to stay out of the culture war? Because it's going to ruin the game. And ultimately, I think it's going to lower their audience, as you pointed out. Let's take a break. And if you had some comments about that, and maybe appreciate the fact that we take around here a bold stance on a lot of issues, nothing's off the table, as we've talked about. And oftentimes we're covering things you hear nowhere else. We certainly do want to challenge you to join with us. The pledge line number, 1-800-347-5151. Got one or two on the line, but some calls that still can come through, so let me encourage you to do that. The website is pointofview.net. In case you don't want to miss all the conversation around the table here, you can be listening while you're actually making your gift. And we are working to finish off our $10,000 match. We're getting closer, but we need your help. 1-800-347-5151. We'll continue our conversation right after this.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
When my children were very small, I started listening, and even before they were school-aged, my eyes started being opened, and I started realizing that there was another religion being taught in our public schools, and I just wanted to let y'all know today I am joining. I just feel like that if the information is not there, then a lot of other ministries will not even have a chance to be where they are and do what they do.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really grateful for your show. I am increasingly dismayed at not only the slanted coverage that mainstream media provides, but the lack of coverage. And I currently give money to some Christian organizations, and I give somewhat to you guys, but I'm going to increase that amount because I think you guys are so important.
Yeah, I've been a regular listener to Point of View, Kerby Anderson, Penadexter, and it's been a very positive experience, and there's a lot of very relevant subjects that they invite you to have a response or reaction to or conversation about. And it's not edited, it's very free and open and very respectful dialogue.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
Truth Team 360, looking for your financial support, and we certainly do need to finish off this match. 1-800-347-5151. Religious liberty, the topic today. We have Kelly Shackelford as well as Jeremy Dice in studio. And I thought for just a minute, Jeremy, I might come to you because some of the briefings that you do are about school, and we've done sort of a back-to-school emphasis recently. You posted some of the articles about that, but a 6th grade assignment, no Bible verses allowed. What about a faith-based high school class? I would, as we just heard from some of our callers here, a lot of them would like to know what to tell their kids when they're in the public schools. Do Christian kids have rights, or do they leave all their rights at the schoolhouse gate?
Yeah, no, they certainly do. In fact, the quote you just had there, the schoolhouse gates part, comes from a very famous decision back in 1969 when the Supreme Court said it's been the unmistakable holding of this court for 50 years. Remember, that was back in 1969. So we're going on about a century where it's been the unmistakable holding of the Supreme Court that students and teachers do not shed their constitutional rights when they walk through the schoolhouse gates. So yes, Johnny and Susie, they still have religious liberty rights when they go to school.
Yeah.
They can form extracurricular clubs if there are other clubs being formed. They can certainly do so that are religious in nature. They can talk about their faith in class during class discussions. They can do it during class assignments. They can reference their faith, and they should not be marked down for that.
Right.
And there are a lot of different ways that they can express themselves while on the campus itself. In fact, if religion is going to get into the schools today, it is more or less going to be carried on the backs of our students than anybody else.
Right.
And so I would encourage students to go to pointofview.net, stay informed here, but also go to firstliberty.org
Sure.
and download our Know Your Rights toolkit
And
for
listen to
students
your
and teachers.
briefings. Yeah, 'cause you
listen
go-
to the briefing.
Yeah.
I'm sure these students have an iPhone or an iPod of some sort. They can download it and show mom and dad how they can download it on theirs as well.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, of course, you very familiar with that case because you wrote a book about it and actually presented that to the Supreme Court. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's in fact people can get the book at firstliberty.org. They can. It's a short book, but it's a story of that case, and it's called Supreme Irony is the name of the book because it was actually brought by the ACLU.
Yes.
It was brought because there were these two students, really three, but the two that are the most well known, the Tinkers, who were protesting. I don't even know if protesting is a little strong. They were just expressing their concern with the loss of life in the Vietnam War, and so they were praying for people who were hurt on both sides. They were more from almost a Quaker-like religion, and so there are people who said at the school who said, "Well, you can't do that at school. You can't wear an armband and express sympathy in something regarding the war. That's controversial, and so we're going to tell you can't express those things while you're at school." And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the ACLU thought, "Hey, we're going to expand speech against war." And sort of an anti-war, anti-military kind of motivation, the guy who did the case. And what they didn't know is that they were expanding freedom.
Yes.
They were setting in place that students do have a First Amendment right to express their beliefs in the school. And guess what? That includes their faith. And so unwittingly, the ACLU had just opened the strongest decision that we still use today in the country for the right of kids to share their faith at school.
Very good.
And so that's the supreme irony. They weren't after that, but God had a different plan, and that's what happens when you open freedom. It's for everybody, and that includes the gospel.
Again, supreme irony. It wasn't Samuel Alito. Didn't he say this was one of the best presentations he'd ever heard?
Yeah, it was. I think usually they get a bunch of law professors, and what we did is we talked about what really happened, and then at the end I had a surprise. The Tinkers, who had been in elementary school and in high school, I after the end of discussing all this, I said they happen to be here in the court today, and we had them stand up there in their 60s, and everybody loved it just because it was real. It was a real case, a real part of American history, and I think it's what the country is really about, and that is, people with different beliefs. I mean, most people don't believe like the Quakers. They're not pacifist, but we respect that, and I think I don't know if Jeremy's done it yet. I know you talked about doing it. Did you do the one on Desmond Doss yet?
I did, yeah. It's a great story.
There's a great story. There's a movie coming out on this in November by Mel Gibson. That's a tremendous movie. But these are the kind of stories of these people who maybe they don't have the same religious beliefs as the majority of the country, but man, there's a real value to having this religious freedom and having these people with these different beliefs, and we respect that as a country. And that's what the case stood for, and Desmond Doss is a great real-life story.
Or Angela and the valedictorian,
That's right.
or the Kuntz cheerleaders. Or
I just talked about Brooks Hamby this afternoon. As a matter of fact, there'll be an upcoming episode. A salutatorian who tried to give his salutatorian speech, but had it censored, literally black marks censored over any reference to religion at all in his speech. But these are the stories we get to tell, and if we forget to tell these stories, no one's going to learn from them.
Yes.
We can have a lot of these victories at First Liberty, and we win 90% of the cases we get involved in. But if nobody knows about them, it's as if they never even happened. And so that's why we want to tell these stories. Stories like Desmond Doss that Kelly mentioned here a second ago. This is the first recipient of the Medal of Honor who was a conscientious objector. I mean, you go, how does that happen? Look, you can either go watch a 2.5-hour movie, or you can get the better story in 90 seconds on the First Liberty briefing some weeks ago. But these are the stories we've got to tell often enough so that we remember these things. And not only remember them, but we can learn from them and then celebrate them as well.
Well, again, we want to encourage you, and I hope that you are encouraged by hearing about all these cases that are won. And this is why, as we come to the end of the program today, we really do need to hear from you. And I know what happens. A lot of people wait to the very end because they love to hear all the conversation, but we do need to hear from you, and we have a number of people waiting to get those phone calls. We will take those calls after we go off the air. But again, if you have not written this number down and you haven't called, then take the time right now to write down 800-347-5151. We'll take some of the calls after we go off the air, but we certainly do need to meet that match. And this is something that we really encourage you to take action on. Don't wait till tomorrow. We need to hear from you today. There's a place for you right now. Pointofview.net or 1-800-347-5151. And Kelly, this is an opportunity for them to support Point of View so that we can give them a chance to hear all those wonderful stories from First Liberty.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, most of the things they hear on Point of View, they just have to ask yourself, I mean, would you have heard this anywhere else? Did you hear these things anywhere else? The answer is no to most of the material and most of the information. And so I know most people out there are very grateful for Point of View. They listen to it. They know it's very different from the other shows. It offers a perspective that's so valuable and on point with what they believe. But you know what? If it's going to be on the air, you've got to support it. And not only by supporting it will you get to hear it, but every person who supports will allow 1,500 more people to hear that. So do that today. We're running out of time or the match is going to be gone.
800-347-5151. We'll be back tomorrow.
All week long, we've heard from our guests and from people like you just how important Point of View is. Each generation must embrace freedom afresh, religious freedom, civil freedom, spiritual freedom. And when you step up to join Truth Team 360, you are standing for all of that and more. You are saying, I believe in America. I believe God wants His best for us. We can face whatever the world throws at us as long as we stand together. If you have not signed on, please do it now. Go to pointofview.net/team. Select your giving amount. Choose your gift for joining the team. It could be a great conversation starter as you use it. pointofview.net/team. Join Truth Team 360 by phone 1-800-347-5151 or mail that first donation. Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. The week is almost over. Please let us hear from you right now. pointofview.net/team. pointofview.net/team. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.
I just thank God for y'all. I listen to you every day, truly. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
God bless you, Kerby, for keeping this show so on track, and for the decades of wonderful help to this nation that Point of View has been. We're all big fans of your work, and we pray that God will just prosper it.
As a Christian, over the years that I've followed this program, I am constantly challenged to be on guard and to evaluate what's going on. And if for no other reason, to protect the caliber and the truth of your programming, I need to participate and to back your program financially to ensure that the truth stays out there for people to hear, to view, and to be a part of.
This is Point of View Radio.